This is the last entry in a serialized look comparing all 6 tank classes over the better part of 2020. We started this series at the very beginning of the alpha, which was a long time ago now. And I hope that along the way we answered some questions. The reason I had started was because so many people were asking so many questions about tanks and things that they couldn't figure out on their own, or just that they wanted somebody else's confirmation on. So, over the year that we covered all this, a lot has changed with tanks. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to wrap this up. We're going to look at this last round of changes. There might be more changes still somehow next week. But either way, this is the end of it. And then next week we will be making a video where I compare all 6 tanks. I give my kind of summary on what the outlook for them in Shadowlands will be, and I hope to answer a lot of direct questions. So last episode that I recorded last week and uploaded, I asked for 3 specific questions that you might want answered. There was a couple people who did it, not many people did. So again, if you have any type of question, even if it's something that you already know the answer to, give it as a suggestion for me so I can answer it just to help other people. Maybe is the best way to do it. But otherwise, this has been a long journey and it's been a lot of fun. Tanking, I think, has never been better than in Shadowlands, honestly. So that's that. So let's get to it. There was a smattering of small changes this week. Nothing crazy, but it's surprising that there's anything going on this late. So if you didn't see these, this was actually basically the day after I had released the last video. The 9th is when this was posted, and that was Monday. So I had released that video on Monday, but I made it on Sunday. So this was actually released the same day as that video went live, unfortunately. But the only real change here is Paladin. I don't think there's any, nothing with Warrior, nothing with any other tank. It's just Paladin. And this is actually something that I thought maybe they weren't going to keep in. Like, I thought this was only going to be for pre-patch. But no, they did actually do all this in the beta too, seemingly. I'm not 100% sure if every single thing was matched because I didn't look through it all, but I do think that they did this. So maybe one thing to note here is Shield of the Righteous's damage has been reduced by 15%. That's a pretty big deal considering it's also a nerf to Holy in some ways, right? But they did get another nerf here. Protection Paladin's passive armor bonus reduced to 10%, was 20%. Word of Glory's healing increased by 9%, and healing when casting Word of Glory rank 2 on yourself reduced to 250%, was 300%. So we'll talk about this in the video. But yeah, Prop Pally is really just not. I had a lot of interest in it at one point, and it's just kind of fallen off for me. But now, if they're getting damage nerfs and reduction nerfs, I feel bad for that class, honestly. But anyway, we have a bunch of other builds, other things to talk about here. So this got then a couple days later. This was like a hot fix for the beta, so they didn't actually do a build this week. They just did a bunch of hot fixes. Okay, and maybe the main one here to notice is Blood Death Knight. Okay, Blood DK got another, I don't know what percentage that would be. Something for sure. 24% or 23%. I don't know. But yeah, long story short, a buff to Death Strike. I have trouble reading what this means, but from what I could tell, a buff to Death Strike's damage and healing done again. Okay, and we did beta keys twice this week actually on my DK, and I'll tell you what, it was kind of nutty. There was times when I was healing myself from 20% health to full, so very interesting to see that. Damage doesn't really seem like it helped. My actual offense is still really bad, but as long as I'm, able to heal myself confidently, I will be very satisfied. I did feel like, I don't know, it's something. They're scaling keys again on the beta, so maybe that's the problem. But I did feel like my rune regeneration was terrible. So anyway, some anima powers too, which I don't even have much interest in talking about at this point. But here's the big one. Okay, this is a big deal. But this is okay. Well, and it looked like it was going to be a really big deal. And then there's even more to come. But so here we go. This is a legendary, Ezekiel's Defilement. For some reason, there's still no actual thing there. But in case you have not seen it, Soul Cleave reduces the remaining cooldown on a random sigil by 8 seconds. That's what it used to say. And the way people would do what they would do here is they'd only have one sigil on CD, and it would be Elysian Decree or whatever that, I guess that's the name of it. Yeah, you literally would only ever use that sigil, and then it would always reduce the sigil. So you would literally just spam it, basically be that, drop it, soul cleave, drop it, soul cleave, basically. So okay, they nerfed that. All right, so now it's by 2 seconds. All right, instead of by 8 seconds, which it's not the biggest nerf they could have did, but it should make a dramatic difference, right? Like it's not going to just be sit there and don't use any sigils, and you're going to do everything that you need to do. You know what I'm saying? But they also changed the anima power here, which doesn't have anything to do with much, but just something to keep in mind. But yeah, so that was I'd say that was a pretty big nerf when it got posted. Jix is always interested in vengeance stuff, so we were talking about that. They also, part of the original hotfix was an adjustment to tank threat, okay? Tank threat has been buffed via hotfix in Shadowlands pre-patch. All tank specializations passive threat generation has increased, okay? Apparently, they did the math. Overall, this is an 11% buff to the additional threat that tanks will put out. We'll go into more specifics below. So yeah, I don't. Raw threat numbers. DPS currently gain 1 point of threat for every point of damage that they put out. Tanks get a bonus multiplier to threat since they deal less damage than DPS and have to hold aggro. Here are the raw numbers. Tanks gain threat equal to 5 times their damage. So apparently it used to be 4.5 times. And then with the Heart of Azeroth equipped, tanks will gain threat equal to 7.5 times. And that's, yeah, there's still stuff in the heart. So I guess in Shadowlands, when it's actually out, it was still a buff too. But I feel like I am going to have a lot of trouble with threat this expansion. We were talking about this on stream yesterday. BFA, you maybe were a little spoiled, especially with corruption at the end there. I almost always did more damage. Like I was often competing damage-wise, but Blood Decay just doesn't have any burst threat. Like, they have Blood Boil, obviously, but it's not like you don't have that moment where, like, Vengeance or even Brewmaster or Warrior. Like, I don't have a real offensive CD. And even Dancing Rune Weapon is still on the goddamn GCD when every other tank's offensive CD has been removed. So it's definitely not offensively. Blood Decay is nothing special. That's for damn sure. Maybe the worst tank offensively now, but I don't like. I literally don't give a fuck about that. And for me, like, you're gonna see this battle a lot here throughout the expansion, but I hope that I'll remain steadfast on it. Like, threat is a two-way street. You know what I mean? So yeah, maybe that holds Blood Decay back because other tanks will be able to do their offense and defense, and they'll not have problems with threat. But like, I really don't care. If there's going to be idiots constantly pulling threat off me, then they're just going to die. They'll get used to it, and maybe I won't get invited as often, or, that'll be looked at as a bad thing, but I'm not going to change the way I play just because Blizzard can't seem to figure out how to make tank threat equal. Like, it's pretty fucking clear that some tanks just do way too much damage. So if they don't adjust that, that's fine. I don't, whatever. Offense is the least important thing to me as a tank anymore, especially now with challenge, or in challenge modes it was a different story when everything was equal, but now that you can go higher and higher in keys, like, you have to worry about defense. So whatever happens there, I just think something that people should realize is that if you're playing a damage dealer and you're constantly pulling threat, maybe you want to try to make an adjustment. You know what I mean? Especially if you're already in the middle of content. It's one thing to be like, I'm not inviting that dude, he's not going to be able to hold threat. Fair enough. But if you're already halfway through the dungeon and you're constantly pulling threat and dying, well, maybe you just wait 2 seconds and then you'll be good. Because if I can get 2 blood boils up and start hard striking, we're good. I don't ever lose threat. But it's we do these dungeons on beta, and I get in there and I put D&D down, and they're already they already have threat. Like, I literally didn't even generate threat yet, and they're already pulling threat. And that's it. Once that happens, that's it. Luckily, two taunts. That's a good thing for DK. But anyway, we'll see how that plays out. So there is some other changes here, some other things to take a look at. Okay, so this was then the second shoe fell. Let's say that Elysian Decree now deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets. So they did this when we were hanging out talking about it. The first one happened, whatever we talked about there, the legendary change, and then they changed this. Okay, now the words out of Jix's mouth were, well, that's that. You know what I mean? Now it's dead, right? Okay, so then 2 days go by, and there's people on the beta testing and playing again, and he's watching it, and he's watching these people not do, like, they're still doing more damage than the actual damage dealers. It's like, okay, so what's going on here? Did these changes not even happen, or do they just not matter? So I don't know. Apparently, this was nothing. Maybe it was really ridiculous at one point. But yeah, apparently Elysian Decree still does an insane amount of damage. Probably still the top damage tank, especially now that Paladin has been nerfed repeatedly. Probably clearly the top damage tank with Kyrian. Will it get nerfed? I don't see how it can't. I mean, if what he's saying and what we're seeing is true, it doesn't make any fucking sense. They do double the damage of half the tanks, so I can't imagine that would be the case. But then again, Prot Warrior was like that for a long time. So we'll see. But I hope that it won't stay this way, not because, whatever, but mostly because it's going to upset the balance of covenants. And I really think already too many people are putting way too much emphasis on Kyrian. I don't think it's good for the system or the game at all. A lot of those people are wasting their own time with that, though, because they're talking about a single soulbind, which means it's like maybe like a 1%, it's like slightly better. Like if you actually look at sims for classes, you'll see that the best and the worst options are still very close. Like if you look at just the numerical difference, it's pretty close. Obviously, if you try to break it down by percentages, it can be looked at as worse. But I don't think most people are going to live up to the sim anyway. So I don't know why anybody worries about the percentage theoretical difference. All you should worry about is the numerical theoretical difference. Like, do you think that you're going to do within 1k DPS of the sim? If so, then you should only be worried about what other things are you within 1k DPS of, right? So if the sim is within 1k DPS, the top to the bottom, then that means that you're going to be able to maximize any of those options, right? But so anyway, we'll see about this, because this is not the case for Vengeance, seemingly. It just does more than every other Covenant put together, pretty much. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, then there was some other stuff here. More just like a general build. Again, I don't think it was actually a build, but just more overall stuff. Guardians, the natural order's will. Barkskin reduces damage by an additional 10% when it begins. So this is that really, really overpowered legendary, looked at as maybe the best defensive legendary in the game, and Guardian is the recipient of it. I think this is going to be a clear winner for them in any content that they're not comfortable in, because Barkskin especially is such a low CD with the talent situation. But that's a sizable nerf, right? I mean, it's definitely not, it's not going to kill that legendary, but that is a relatively sizable nerf. Some other changes that maybe are relevant to people who play the class, but not to tanks. This is Mistweaver, Windwalker. I'm not sure there is anything else here. Yeah, that's actually looking like it. Legendary, this is for Holy Shock. Prot, so here's the change that we were reading before. Word of Glory change there. Rep Pally, and that's it, actually, yeah. So is there, yeah, okay, so here's the Shield of the Righteous change. Okay, so yeah, that is in Shadowlands, just to be clear on that, you know what I mean? Vanquisher's Hammer. There's a hammer dealing less shadow damage than it did before. I don't know how many people would be taking this, though. I don't really know what's going on with Prot Pally. I think everybody's going Kyrian because of the ability there is really powerful. So I'm not sure how many people are even considering not doing that. Like, there's been a couple times, like in tanks especially, where people aren't even considering any other option. It seems like Kyrian for both Paladin and Vengeance are in that boat there. But I don't know. I'm not don't have my ear to the ground there, And then here's the Arms Warrior and the Fury Warrior changes, confirming that those are also in, and then no changes to Prot. So that is basically the end of it. Pelagos has been altered again, seemingly, though, with one more change on the 12th, which was now only 3 days ago. I think they just gave up with this change here. 4 seconds, now back to 6 seconds. It's like, all right, well, we're not going to get people to drop the stacks. So instead, they just nerfed it even further. So back to 6 seconds. So now it's like, all right, well, you're not going to really drop the stacks. But now it still only goes to 3%. So yet another nerf. But I don't know. People like all of a sudden they just absolutely love versatility, which I think is hilarious, because I've been trying to convince people to use versatility in a raid setting for years now as a raid leader. And Everybody's like, lol. But yeah, so now all of a sudden versatility is just looked at as the best stat. I guess it's just maybe numerically better than other options. But anyway, another change to Elysian Decree. I guess this is why this seems like another attack power. I just don't understand. AP mod 3.5, 2.62. I mean, I don't know what the hell they're doing with this ability. The question is, why is it not very powerful for Havoc too? Like, if Vengeance is doing so well, why is Havoc not just absolutely ripping up the meters? I don't understand that. Does anybody actually know that? Because I keep waiting to see Havocs, and they just don't exist. But that's I think that's actually it. So yeah, big. The threat change thing might actually be the biggest deal, one way or the other. We'll see how that plays out. Obviously, if you're the top DPS on a pack, then you're going to have threat like Vengeance. But I think for, the other tanks, basically, even like, tanks that used to be looked at as offensive, like Warrior and Paladin, are still going to have threat problems. And even on single target, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's a fair change. I like threat. I think threat is probably one of the most interesting ways to play a tank. In fact, I used to love the threat model, like TBC and Classic. I would always say those were my favorite times to tank before challenge modes and shit came out, because it was like really engaging. Every pack, you had to pay attention on every mob. And then they changed it in Wrath, and it got terrible. Wrath and Cataclysm were terrible. But then they kind of transformed into this active mitigation model where every time you had to pay attention to your health pool now. So it's fun, but I like both, and then both are in, basically. Shadowlands is both, you got to worry about your survival a lot, but you also got to worry about threat. And especially, if you don't have big offense up or something like that, it's going to be a big deal. But the question is, when is it the problem of the group and not the problem of the tank? And that's something I just, maybe it's not going to work out. Maybe most people won't find it to be fun. But I think it creates a better group dynamic when you actually have to work a little bit for threat as a tank. And the group has to admit that sometimes they're just making the tank's life too hard. You know what I mean? Like, it happened multiple times. We did Theater of Pain 6-7 times maybe yesterday. I really wanted to test that out. I'm going to be making a video on Theater of Pain, updating that as well. But there was 3 or 4 packs in there where like one group would not pull, like they understood, or maybe they just sucked. I don't know. But it was like easy with some groups. And then like we had a Ellie Shaman who was going like nuts, and he would literally chain lightning before D&D would drop, and chain lightning would go out. So it's like, well, you have threat now, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, do you care? If you don't care, then go for it. If you are fine to tank, then feel free. Go for that. I will do my best. I'll do my best. And honestly, it makes my life easier. If you're going to do that shit, you're making my life easier, because now I don't have to get hit on the pull. Like, it's actually kind of a big deal for Bloody Kid. That's why on necrotic weeks, I won't mind. You know what I mean? At all. Because if these guys are getting necrotic stacks, it just means my life's way easier. I don't have to worry about that upfront burst of damage without any, Runic's power or Death Strike coming in. It's so much easier. Just go pull threat, dude. You can go fuck around and die if you want. I'm not going to die. You know what I mean? It actually makes everything about it easier. So it's a tough position to walk, because, the goal of the group should be to succeed. But some DPS just have the mentality where their goal is not to succeed. It's to, look good on the meters all the time. So I think a lot of those people would rather pull threat and die, because it's like an ego boost. Like, oh, look at how good I am compared to my peers. You know what I mean? So this is going to be an interesting season. Let's put it that way. And especially because the Prideful ad is going to make people even more interested in padding, or, numbers overall. This is going to be an interesting expansion, guys, and I cannot wait for it. Every day that goes by, like the anticipation is swelling to this point, where I am just I'm so fucking excited for this expansion. Like, I can't hide it anymore. I really cannot wait for launch. I have big plans, guys. I'm going to be streaming a lot, especially because December, famously a big month on YouTube. We're going to hit it really hard. I'm going to be streaming. I'm going to be live a lot. And we're going to be making a lot of videos, and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff. And hopefully you guys will be along for the journey, because I really want to make this my career. I really want to be able to live off this channel and continue providing content and helping people being the main thing. I just wanted to always help people in my life. So that's partially why I got into healing and then tanking. And it's definitely why I got into YouTube. So let's do it, man. If you have any questions, let me know. I really want to make this next tank video to help people. I honestly, like, I was thinking about just not even making it, because I feel like this whole series would be it. Like, what else is there? but I'm going to make it. I'm going to summarize everything we've been talking about over the last few months, and I'll give my, candid approach to alt 6 tanks. Obviously, I'm not the most experienced player. I'm not the most experienced player even on my Blood DK, but, maybe people will find value in it. But the main thing is I can hopefully answer any questions in depth and give a better foundation for you to make that decision. So please leave any questions that you have in the description or in the comment section on this video, or message me in Discord or talk to me somewhere else. So thanks for watching, guys. It's been a hell of a ride. This last, 8 or 9 months really covering this beta has been, a lot has happened, IRL and in-game. Let's put it that way. So it was a pleasure. Anybody who's been along for the ride, we'll see you again for the next one.